Hello guys, my name is Clem from Ask Clem Today. And in this video, we're going to go ahead and show you how to select the proper power supply for the LED job that you're doing. It's important that you know which size power supply you need. And the reason is that you don't want your job that you've created and all of a sudden it doesn't turn on simply because you didn't work the formula out. So at the end of this video, I will give you the formula, the basic formula, in how to select a proper power supply for your LED job, either for a 10-foot, I'm going to be calculating for a 10-foot job and a 60-foot job. But at the same time, if you're wanting to learn how to solder your wires properly to an LED strip, at the end of this video, there's going to be another video that you can select and how to do this, because it is important that you solder correctly. And then I'll give you some tips that I've learned throughout the years and how to test things and how to make sure that you don't have a short. But if there's anything that you want to learn more after this video, just go to the comments below and leave me some comments, and perhaps I can either create another video for you in order to explain your question. But I hope that this video will be informative for you, and then you can go ahead and light up the world, light up your house, which will be pretty cool. And so let's go ahead and get to how to select the proper power supply for your LED job. Thanks. Well, today we're going to be talking about power supplies in order to use it for LEDs. We're just going to go basic. We're not going to go into heavy technicalities, but there's some things that you do need to know in order to select the right power supply according to the distance of LEDs that you're going to be using. But I want to introduce you to some of the sizes and the wattage that you can actually purchase. For example, this one here is 100 watt, but it's a 12 volt, and 12 volt is nice because that's why we use very little electricity. And as you can see, this one here, you have here the load, then you got the neutral, then you got the ground, and then you have the negative voltage and the positive voltage. So on this particular one, those are screws that you can use with a Phillips screwdriver, and you can see the size, very compact, very thin. And this one is basically does not have a fan, so it just cools by itself. Now let me show you this other one. This other one is 150 watts, 12 volts, but notice the difference in size. There's a difference in size. But on this particular one, it has a little shield that you can flop down to protect yourself. And then you have, again, notice there it says 150-12. The 12 stands for voltage and the 150 is for your watts. But this one has extra ports to put wires in. So not only have your load, neutral, and ground, but you also have 2 spots for negative voltage and 2 spots for positive voltage. So this is 150. And also there's a little screw right here, and that little screw is to adjust. It's an adjustment, and really it's not something you want to play with all the time, but it can adjust in how dim you can set your lights, but it's a very micro adjustment, so it's not huge. That's where you have controllers, you can do that. Now I'm going to show you, and this one also it does not have a fan. Now I'm going to show you one that's 350 watts, 12 volts. As you can see, the size of it's a little bit bigger, and this one happens to be a little bit, they call it ultra thin, and you can see it right there where it's got, oops, hopefully I can focus, yeah, 350 by 12. And the same thing, it has extra ports. It actually has an additional, so now you got 3 positives and 3 negatives. You can but this one is air cool. It has a fan that you can use. So there's that. And then you have this little guy. This guy, as you can tell here, is what is it? Forgot. 25 watts 12 volt, and you can see the size compared to them all for smaller jobs, obviously. And then you got a shield here that you can put on just to kind of protect yourself. Even though you got these plastic cores, it's kind of hard to touch it, but you know, you hate to have a screwdriver hit it, especially if you got power and all. So this is pretty neat. So you got that little guy there. Now I'll introduce you to this guy. So this guy is 150 watts, but notice it says 24. It's a 24 it's a 24 volt, 150 watts, and this here is for waterproof. You can actually put this outside without any casing, or you can put it in a Comtex box if you like. It's going to be more durable outside because then the moisture and all that won't get to the contents inside, and it's hardwired in. Obviously this will be a little bit more expensive because of what it has to deal with. So we got that guy, and then of course a lot of you are familiar with this guy here. You see that in a lot of your laptops and computers. Some of them are either 60 or 90 watts. You know, would I use this for LEDs? Very little, depending on what am I driving, because these are not durable. You know, they won't last as long as these guys. These guys are workhorses. But what's cool about this guy, as you know, for if you're doing something small, plug and play, this would be ideal for somebody that doesn't have the the knowledge and how to hook things up. You can have this here. They sell these little guys here that you can take apart, and then you can plug, solder this to whatever, and then just have them plug and play. That's what they call it. But the one thing I use this for is that in order to test my LEDs, which you'll see it in another video if you go to the video that I have about LEDs and how I use this to kind of test out my solder and my lights to make sure they're working. But again, this is not something that I would use for big jobs or anything like that. But that's just to kind of show you the options that you have. Again, there's 24 volts that you can get into, and then there's the 12 volts. And the 24 volts would be ideal if you have projects that are super long, that you need power to, and 12 volts is great, the go-to, but it's for smaller projects. So guys, I'm going to show you how to hook up a plug wire into one of these power supplies so you can give it power. And you have the option to use one that has a ground plug or the one that does not have a ground plug. They both will work with no problem. Difference is that if you have a small job, you know, not that expensive, and you only want power, you know, it's not all the time, and you can use this without the ground. The only thing is that if a lightning does happen, that, you know, there's a possibility of getting it knocked out. But what is it going to get affected? Most likely the power supply, not the LED. LEDs are pretty resilient, but you know, there's always that chance. But if you are concerned about your power supply, and if it's a big job or if it's a big power supply, then definitely go with the ground wire. But in a pinch, if you need power temporarily until you get one, then this is fine. That's why, like, when I'm driving about and I see appliances out in the curb that they're throwing away, this is what I go for. Yeah, it's probably $5 that you can buy brand new, but $5 adds up when you have a lot of jobs. So now let me show you. Sometimes when you buy these, they will have these guys already stripped. If they're not stripped, it's as easy as getting a box knife. Has to be sharp, and then you just kind of score it. Here, I'll show you here real quick. Just kind of do one of these numbers, score it like this, and just kind of like snap it in place. So notice I didn't score it all the way down, so I'm just twisting it. Now that I twist it, I'm just going to pull this apart. See how it pulls apart? There's no cuts, no nicks on my wire, and you don't want that, because if you have a nick, then electricity can jump right out. So let me just go ahead and pull this guy out, and that's garbage. Now you'll have some of these wires that can be snipped off and all that. A lot of these guys will have solder at the tip. Well, I really don't want that. I don't care for it, so I'm going to cut it off. There you go. So now leave it like that. Oh, by the way, you have different type of wire stripping tools. They have like a green handle, yellow handle, and they also got a red handle. The red handle is ideal for LEDs, especially the gauge of the wire. This here cut strips it much better than if it was a yellow or blue. Trust me, I've tried it. So the red would be ideal if you're going to do a lot of LEDs and messing with the 22 or 18 gauge wire, 22 gauge or 18. So now what we want to do is, on this particular end, I'm going to go ahead and go almost to the second to the end, and about 1/4 of an inch. And what I do here, a lot of people have a hard time stripping. So I'm going to go ahead and find it here, just squeeze it. I'm using my thumb as a fulcrum or leverage, and then pop it out. If that's not working good for you guys, then probably try the next hole. The next hole there. Again, my thumb as leverage. Boom, it comes off nice and easy. All right, so I'm going to clean this guy just a little bit. All right, so now there you are. Now, if you happen to use one of these wire strippers and you go too low, then you'll end up cutting some of these copper wires, and you don't want that. That's why the gauge is important. But if you cut one strand, two, no biggie, but ideal is not to. So now put this box knife away. Now we're done with the wire strippers when it comes to using power supplies. The next tool you're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver, the one with the star. And in here, you're going to notice that you have screws. So what we want to do is we want to loosen up, first of all, the first three that when it comes to the power, which is the neutral, the load, and the ground, because we do have 3 wires. So now I'm going to go ahead, just loosen it up. Just enough so I can insert it. So right off the bat, you have to understand the green is always a ground wire. So that's this center pin right here. That's your green one. So right off the bat, since there's 3, we're going to eliminate that. Let me slide this over here this way, and we're going to go ahead, and you can see that the ground is this guy, this little picture here. That's your ground wire. So let's go to the ground wire. I'm going to put my screwdriver there, and I like to put my wire on the left side because as my screw turns, it doesn't push it out more so than if you put it on the right side of the screw. So I'm going to put it on the left side of the screw, make sure it's open enough, and then just give it a little twist. And then kind of snug it. You don't want to crank down on it, and then give it a little tug to make sure that you're good. Now, for the neutral, which is the white one, we're going to put it here under N for neutral. We're going to go ahead and put it right there. Do the same thing. Just kind of snug it, and then give it a little tug. Make sure there's no wire sticking out. And now the load, which is the black one, we're going to go ahead and put it here. Oops, I have this little 1 wire sticking out, so I'm going to curl it back in. There you go. Now they're snug. So there you go. All 3 wires are put in, and this is ready to plug, and this will work out. Okay, check it out. Now, if it's working properly, I'm going to plug it. You're going to see this little green light right here turn right on. Let me put it right there. Check it out. Boom, there's my green light. That means I got power to this device and I can go ahead and use it. Now, these other 2 is where you would input the wires from your source that you want lit up, like your LEDs. So At least that kind of gives you an idea in how that works out. So I hope this tutorial helped you out. And if you have any comments, any question, let me know in the description under the comments. So now the lights, you can see it worked out. But now here comes the technical part of this video, and that is, how do I know what size power supply do I use? Well, I'm only going to give you some basics so you can have an understanding. So if you want to take out a pen and paper so you can write some things down, I'll give you that opportunity to do that. So now I'm going to give you some little technical information that you will need in order to know how much power is required to light up whatever your LEDs you're lighting up by footage. If this is something, I'm not going to go into too many technicalities. I'm just going to give you some basic information for you to do your own wiring, to know what power supply to purchase and how much power you need, because that's what the problem is. Some people, they get these projects and they have them either they're long and they don't know how to calculate it, and then before you know it, they put power in and then it's bright here but then it's dim at this other side, and they don't understand why. So just the basic principles, nothing too deep and heavy, but it does require a little math work. So thank goodness for calculators. I already went ahead and did the calculations, so you will need a pen and paper so you can have an idea of what we're working at here. So guys, I'm just going to give you the basics and how to select the power supply for the job that you're doing. And this is a must that you need to know in order to get the right power, because otherwise it'll be under power, and then before you know it, it's just not going to work and you're going to scratch your head wondering why. So very basic stuff. For example, we're going to work off an LED strip that has 1.4 watts per foot. That 1.4 watts per foot in those LEDs, that's if all three colors RGB are turned on, red, green, and blue. Now if let's say if you do a combination of red and green only, then you only would need 0.93 watts per foot. Or if you're only going to use one color, let's say like red, then you're only going to need 0.47 watts per foot. So that kind of gives you an idea. So they're giving you a what if you have all three on to be prepared. So now let's work at 1.4 watts per foot, and then we'll do two different scenarios so you can have an idea. So you do 1.4, and let's say you're working on a 10-foot strip. Multiply that times 1.4, that gives you 14 watts. Then you're going to multiply a 20%. So you need a little buffer just in case you don't want to max out on the power supply. So that 20% times 14, that's 2.8. Now you take 2.8 plus the 14, that gives you 16.8 watts. Now it's pretty slim that you're going to find a 16.8 watts power supply out there. So then you go to the next step, and that's where, like this little baby, the 25 watt 12 volt power supply will come in handy for a small job like that. Now let's go ahead and step it up to a 60-foot project. Let's say you got 60 feet of LEDs now. On that 60 feet, you multiply 1.4 and you get 84 watts. You add the 20%, multiply that, and that gives you 16.8. Then you add that towards your 84 watts, and that gives you 100 watts that you're going to need. Minimum is what you're going to need, and that's where they do sell 100 watts or 150 watt power supplies that you can use. So that will give you plenty of power. But understand that on 60-foot run, you don't want to add power to the LED on the one end, because then it'll be bright here and then dim on the other end. So you want to go ahead and split it up. So let's say there's 3 sections of LEDs, 16 feet, 4 sections. Then you go to the end 16 feet, put power there, and then go to the other end, put 16 feet, put power there, and then that will distribute. The power travels both ways. It's not like a home that only has to be one way in. So the cool thing about LEDs, you can put power anywhere along it, and it gives it power. But now, let's say that you have a brighter LED. that requires 4.7 watts per foot. Now that's bright, but not as bright, because I've dealt some even as 9 watts per foot. So now if you take 4.7 times 10 feet, the same feet that we were messing with, that's 47 watts, times your 20%, that's 9.4, plus your 47 gives you 56.4 watts. This 25 ain't gonna cut it. So they don't sell 56.4 watts. So you go to the next step. They do sell 60s, just a tiny bit bigger than this. So you use a 60 watt power supply. But now let's go to the 60-foot run at 4.7. That would be 60 times 4.7, that'll be 282 watts. Times your 20%, it's 56.4. You add that together, 282 plus 56.4, comes out to 338.4. Well, they don't sell 338 watt power supplies, but the next step is your 350 that they sell that you can add to that. So you have plenty of power in order to run that job. So guys, I hope this was beneficial for you. I hope it wasn't too deep for you, but at least it give you a basic where you can go ahead and do it yourself, have the right power to it without having issues down the run. And I tell you, these power supplies, Meanwells, are workhorses. They're phenomenal. And of course, you got to consider is, do you need a fan cool, or do you need it just cool regularly? Is there enough cool in the area that you're placing it? And so if you have any comments, if you need any help in any other power supplies or some basic information, just go ahead and make sure you comment at the bottom in the description on the comments, and then I'll reply to you, and perhaps I can even make a video for you. But in the meanwhile, why don't you go ahead and check out this video here on how to do LEDs, how to solder the wires for the LEDs, because some people just don't do it correctly, and there is a right way and a wrong way, and you want this to last. But also there are good LEDs and there are bad LEDs or cheap LEDs that you definitely want to stay away from, and I will show you the reason what I'm talking about in this video here. Alright guys, I hope this was helpful. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.